I am here today to do my January 2019 wrap up. Very exciting, yes. I will do the same kind of thing. I'm going to do books and then other stuff at the end. So if you don't want to watch the rest of it, that is great. Well, it's not great, but I understand. I read a good amount of stuff. Oh, let me get my bullet journal so I can tell you guys how many pages I read and stuff. So I was keeping, oh, let me cover that up. I was keeping kind of track of the pages that I read. Obviously, that was 24 and 48, which I think I'm just going to do once a month because it really boosts my reading. I'll link below, if I remember, my vlog where I do the 24 and 48. I was also kind of keeping track of my reading like this. You can tell that, there were not great days and then there were better days. And yeah, it's just a fun way to kind of keep track. And then I keep track of the books that I've read and bought at the bottom and the page count of them for my little, where is it? Professional as always. My book balance sheet. And then I am like coloring them in by genre. There's so much stuff going on in here, but it's so much fun to keep track of. So I bought 2 books in January, which is a complete lie. I bought more than 2, but I'm kind of doing this like as they come in. So if I've ordered online and I haven't received them, they don't count. Like they count as pages the second they cross into my door. So 2 books, 605 pages. I read I DNF'd 4. And so my total is -10 books, and I removed 2,720 pages from my TBR shelf. So like great way to start the year, eh? And I did read some of the challenges and stuff, but I'm not going to talk about that in this video. I'll do like hopefully kind of like a quarterly updates. I'm going to start with the 2, actually I didn't include this book in that, but that's okay. I got this as like kind of a birthday present, a late birthday present from my friend Rachel. It says, I could pee on this, and so I did not add this to my list because, it's just like a tiny little cat poetry book, and there's pictures of cats being cute in it. And then the other book that a book that I got is Friday Black by Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah. Yeah, okay. And then the other book that I got, I'm currently reading, and it's How Long. Something's in my mouth. This is weird. I guess I'm just gonna have to move on because I'm not editing this. So, How Long Till Black Future Month by N.K. Jemisin. So I'm currently reading that. I am gonna change how I show the books. I'm gonna do them like least to best this time. So I'm gonna start with my DNFs. First of all, I DNF'd this series, and by DNF'd this series, I mean I've had this series on my shelves for forever. This is book 1 and then book 3, so I tried to read Guilty Pleasures by Laurel K. Hamilton. It's a weird vampire thing that I'm just like not in the mood for. I feel like I would have really liked it if I was like 17, 16, because it's like, a tough chick kind of thing, like a la Janet Ivanovich and the Sookie Stackhouse, but I just like don't care, don't have time. I also attempted to read Quiet by Susan Cain. I did get this in like 2015, I think, or maybe 2014. I thought it was going to be more of like information about what makes, oh my God, I got it. Yes. About like what makes someone an introvert and what doesn't, and like da-da-da, and like kind of more science-y things. But I guess this is kind of just like a self-helpy book telling people that are introverts like, it's okay, here are some examples, and, introverts are important, and I know introverts are important, and I don't need to be told that, so I'm done. I don't want to read that. Also, sad, Queen Sugar by Natalie Bazile. The writing for me just was not, if the writing was better, I probably would have continued. It is very contemporary. It's this woman with her daughter, and her father has passed away, and so she takes her daughter to like the sugarcane field that he purchased, and she has to kind of like tend for it. It kind of reminded me a little bit of like the Sweet Home Alabama vibes, where like city girl goes and moves to the country and like is trying to like get by, and I don't know. It's just like not like this genre isn't my favorite, and then plus the writing was way overly descriptive, and I just like found it, I don't know. And then like some other stuff is happening, and I don't know. I just, life's too short. Maybe in the future I'll like check it out from the library or something, but I just don't want to be reading that right now. So now on to the things that I actually completed. Sorry, I'm talking fast. So I guess my least favorite of the things that I read, which is surprising, is this. And this is Dalston Monsters by Dilraj Man. And so this was a like futuristic kind of it reminds me of the 80s, but like the future and creatures and the movie The Warriors. So that's the vibes that I got. It was really enjoyable. It's, you know, there's like this, I don't want to say goody two shoes, but there's this young man who I think is just being released from like a prison or something, and his friend is like kind of a tough guy, and he's dating this chick, and she gets like kidnapped or something. And then there's all these different gangs, and so that's what reminds me of The Warriors, because they're like, you know, trying to flee. Oh, I think no, he gets kidnapped and held for ransom because they want her or something like that. I read this at the very beginning of the of the year. So it's like very, very loud. It is super fun. And again, there's like weird monsters, and it does remind me of The Warriors. Hold on, there's my favorite page is the page where they show all the different gangs and like why they're tough or something. Why they're tough's not the right word. Man. Well, I can't find it, so that's pretty awkward, but trust me, it's in there. There's, you know, a bunch of different gangs, and they have to, this is not that long. I should be able to find that like very easily. Oh, here it is. So there's like a map view. So here's the two of them looking at the map, and then a description of all of the different like gang people. And yeah, it was super fun. I definitely enjoyed that. I think I gave it 3 stars. Then next, I feel like these next two are kind of like the same, but Bridget Jones' The Edge of Reason. I read this during the 24 and 48, and it gave me a lot of anxiety. It's just so frustrating because, like, if she were just honest with Mark, I think his name is Mark, Darcy, about her feelings, then none of this would happen. She's like so anxious. She thinks that he's cheating on me, and so she's like really distant and yells at him. And then he's like, I don't know what to do, because men are not mind readers, in case you were wondering. And it's just like so frustrating because all of the trouble that she gets into with her relationships are because of her. But it was really, really fun and absolutely hilarious, because there's a whole scene in this where because you know she's like a reporter or whatever. I don't remember the movie. I saw this movie once. But there's this whole bit where she's interviewing Colin Firth, because he plays Darcy in Pride and Prejudice, and she loves him. Mr. Darcy in Pride and Prejudice. And it just like cracks me up that she's interviewing Colin Firth, because Colin Firth plays Mark Darcy in the movie. So I don't know, like that honestly had me cracking up hysterically. But again, this really frustrated me at times. And then the next book that I have is This Is Where I Leave You by Jonathan Tropper. I feel like I've heard really, really good things about this, and don't get me wrong, it is really good. It's about a family. I think there's 2 sisters and 3 brothers, or 3 brothers and 1 sister. I think that's it. 3 brothers, 1 sister, and a mom. The father has just died, and they're sitting Shiva, and so basically they're stuck together for this time, and the family's kind of estranged? I think that's the right word. The family has like grown distant, and in some cases there is straight out animosity between members of family members. And again, it's kind of because people aren't honest with each other. Like, I just give it all the time, and so it just frustrates me when I encounter characters who are not vocal about things, because that would solve so many problems. but everyone's embarrassed or ashamed or whatever. I did think that this was quite funny and quite morbid. Our main character, whose name is Judd Foxman, at the very beginning of the movie, you find out that his wife has cheated on him with his boss, and he found out, so they've kind of like, they're off together, and now he's not in a marriage. I mean, he's still technically married, but they're like separated. You know what I mean? And so it just kind of goes through this whole thing. My main complaint about this, which I mentioned in like the vlogs I talked about this book, is that there's a lot of like weird body stuff in this. He's constantly idolizing women and saying like, oh, you know, there's a lot of descriptors about bodies like sagging or like tight or firm or droopy or just like so much of it. And it really, really got under my skin. I am not one of those people, like I don't think overly sensitive about that kind of stuff, but I really could not stand it at a certain point. Like it really just drove me crazy. I think the book is really great, but if it had been edited differently, I get having some of that because, you know, it's a man and it was written in the whatever early aughts. I have no idea. And like I understand that part of life is looking at people and seeing what people look like, but there was way too much emphasis on like fitness, not like fitness, but the amount of fit that a woman would have, and like talking about this other woman and like aging and stuff like that. And it just like, it was kind of gross, to be honest. But the book was funny and weird, and I enjoyed the other parts of it. I could leave that bit though. Maybe I liked Bridget Jones a little bit more than that one. Anyways, so the next book that I have is Courtesan by Jessica Salgado, and she is LA-based Salvadoran poet. And so this is just, you know, about being brown and loving people and being heartbroken and family and all that kind of stuff. It was quite lovely. I'm not going to read any of it because some of the poems do have that thing where it's, you know, like not a lot on a line, and I feel like there's maybe a very specific cadence and way you're supposed to say it, and I don't want to embarrass myself, so I'm not going to. But I did think this was really, really beautiful. Jake's sister gave this to me for Christmas, and I'm going to hopefully reread it later this year. The next thing that I have is Ella Minnow P by Mark Dunn, and this was so fun. I read this also during the 24 and 48, and it's, I feel like this was super popular on BookTube a while ago, so you probably already know what it's about, but just in case you don't, it takes place on like on an island that is like part of the US, I think, but they've got their own rules, so maybe, I don't know exactly like the politics of the city or town or island or whatever. But basically, their claim to fame is that their founder is a person that wrote The Quick Brown Fox Jumps Over the Lazy Dog, or The Quick Brown Dog Jumps Over the Lazy Fox. No, The Quick Brown Fox Jumps Over the Lazy Dog. And it uses all the letters of the alphabet, and it's only 36 letters long or whatever. And so that's like their claim to fame. And a letter falls off of the thing. And because the letter falls off, the councilmen people have decided that means that letter can't be used in speech or writing anymore. And so like one by one, the letters are falling, and they think it's a sign from this person like beyond the grave that you're not supposed to use the letters anymore. But other people are like, it's just the glue isn't working anymore. So it's really, really cute and really fun. And it's very well written. I feel like there's a lot of times that you read books that try to be verbose and are like doing too much. And so you think, hey, like, okay, I get it. You've got a PhD, whatever. But this is just like using language and words in a fun way that you don't really think about that frequently because you're used to speaking, you know, in your everyday vernacular or whatever. So it was even like the first couple of letters when they're using sorry, I say letters because it's an epistolary. So in the first few letters, when they can use all the letters of the alphabet, it is quite a distinct kind of language, and I just think it is beautifully written. So that was really fun. Man, I am talking a lot and quickly, and I apologize. The next thing that I have is My Favorite Thing is Monsters by Emil Ferris. Jake got this for me for Christmas, and this was so good. I feel like this was also really popular a while ago, and then a lot of people started saying, oh gosh, sorry, I have to reposition, not great things about it, and I don't really know why you would say something negative about. I mean, I guess I need to go back and watch those, but I kind of like, when I'm interested in reading something, I try not to listen to what other people have to say about it. It's so beautiful. There are two kind of perspectives that we're following. One is our main character, whose name I cannot remember, but it's her and her brother and her mother and their neighbor Anya, who is on the front here, who's beautiful. She just died. I forget how she died exactly, but she might have been shot or something, and it looked like a suicide. And so it kind of goes back and forth between, like, I think that she's with the husband and she finds a tape of her being interviewed by someone, and so you're kind of like finding out more about her life when she was young, which was so heartbreaking and beautiful. And then you're also getting a little bit of the main character's journey in life too. My only like complaint about this is that I felt like this was a memoir, and I'm a little disappointed that I'm not disappointed that it's not, because what happens in this is terrible, but I felt kind of like cheated a little bit. Like I felt so much for everyone in this, and I was just like, oh my gosh. And then when I realized that this is fiction, I don't know, I was just like, oh, like you really kind of played with my emotions, lady. So but I did think it was really, really wonderful, and I am going to definitely read the second one. I will say that this is kind of a lot of money to pay for a graphic novel, so I'm glad that I got it as a present, because I would never buy it for myself. So hopefully the next one comes to me as a present too. You know what I'm saying? All right, so then the next one that I have is The Man Who Spoke Snakish by Andrus Kivirak, and this is translated by Christopher Mosley, and this was so weird. So this is by an Estonian author, and it kind of just like takes Estonian mythology, folklore, theoretically, I don't know, because I don't know anything about Estonian mythology and folklore, but kind of like puts them into a book. So our main character is a young boy. This is I think, my favorite style of book, where it's an adult telling their story, like growing up and like retrospectively kind of looking at their life. I kind of think those are my favorite, because my Brilliant Friend the Neapolitan novels are like that too. So he's living in the forest. There's this whole kind of like, it's almost like colonialistic dynamic, where the people of Estonia live like kind of in the forest. They speak Snakish, so they're able to speak to snakes, and they can speak to other animals and kind of control the animals. And then the Iron Men are coming to their town. So Iron Men and monks are coming and giving them tools. And so a lot of people are moving towards the village. So there's this whole like village versus forest dynamic happening. So the old ways versus the new ways. But then there's some people that are doing the old ways that are like too old ways, like honoring water sprites and all this kind of stuff. And there's this whole, it's so bizarre. It was honestly so weird. And the way it was written, this is translated, so I don't know if it has to do with the translator or the author, but there's a lot of kind of like, I don't want to say vulgar, but there's like weird words that you wouldn't, like looking at this cover and looking at like that font, you expect it to be kind of, I don't want to say old-timey, but like medievally kind of. And there's some like crass, crude language that you would expect from like a 15-year-old boy. Not like a ton, so it doesn't, it's not jarring or anything. It's not too much, but it is kind of funny when it happens, because you're like, oh, this is a contemporary book, obviously. I'm not sure when this was written, but it's not that old. Let me see. 2007 was when it was originally written, and 2015 is when it was translated into English. So it is quite contemporary, and you can tell that in the writing. But I think it was a really interesting way to look at another culture and another country's kind of like life. And it is a little sad, because, it's like saying goodbye to, it's called, oh, I guess it's not what I thought it was called, but it is, parting ways with like the old ways of doing things, and trying to come to terms with maybe being the last person who does something. And I thought it was like quite beautiful in that respect, and just like so weird, so bizarre. I feel like there's yeah, there's some kind of weird stuff in this book, but it was really good. I think you have to be okay with like some, maybe like, I don't think body mutilation, but there's like some like worm stuff maybe. I don't quite remember, but I think there was a couple of things that I was like, oh, that's weird. Super weird. And speaking of weird, my favorite book of the month was Come Madre by Roque Larraqui, translated by Heather Cleary. This was a cover buy for me over the summer when I was in Ann Arbor, and this was so weird. This was extremely, extremely, extremely weird. It's got two bits. I was confused at first when the second bit happened as to like what is going on. The first bit takes place in 1907, and it is kind of like in this health institute and this group of scientists. I think it takes place in art. It's an Argentinian author, and so it takes place in Buenos Aires. And I think it's like an American is the person who came up with this idea, which I think is very fascinating, about trying to kind of like decapitate people and see what they say when that happens. I don't think that's a spoiler because that happens in the first, like very, very soon. That's what the whole book is. That's what the whole first section is. This made me feel unwell, especially for some reason the second section. I feel like it made me feel a little bit more ill. I was a little bit sleepier during the second section, but it made me feel kind of sick to my stomach, like when I read The Wasp Factory by Ian Banks, which is another book that I absolutely love. I like feeling uncomfortable and upset when I read things, so I really, really enjoyed it. It is just so weird. And then there's this whole other like dynamic because our main narrator, he's in love with one of the nurses, and it's just so bizarre. The narrator is crazy, and in both of the sections, like not crazy. Sorry, I guess I need to stop using that word like that, but something's wrong with this person, and I really, really enjoyed reading this so much. I just it made me want to throw up. Okay, guys, so that's what I'm into. Sorry. My bad. Okay, so this has already been over 20 minutes. But I don't want to do a whole nother video about my other stuff because it's not that much. I watched a few movies last month, not a ton. My favorite movie of the month was Roma. I thought Roma was breathtaking. I thought it was such a beautiful, like, quiet, slow movie about humans and all of the many facets that all of us have. I get really frustrated when people put people in boxes, like you're a good person, you're a bad person. Like that's not how it works. All of us are wonderful and all of us suck really hard sometimes. And I feel like watching the dynamic between this like housekeeper, babysitter person and the family that she's with, I just thought it was so beautiful. I like felt for every single character at one point during the movie. Like you can see just how complex our emotions are, and I just adored it. I want to say it's my favorite movie of all time. Like I just loved it so much. I don't know if I'd be able to watch it super frequently like The Fifth Element because it was emotionally draining, but spectacular. I also watched The Little Hours, which was super weird. That one's based on the Decameron, I think, and yeah, I don't know. It was fine. It was funny. It was weird. And then I watched Vice, and that was also very, very interesting. It's about Dick Cheney, our vice president under George W. And yeah, it was really upsetting. I felt like it was kind of propagandistic at times because they were showing a lot of like innocent people because we killed so many innocent people, and so it shows footage of that, which I understand is I get why they're doing it because they're showing what we've done, but it kind of felt like a little like dirty to me. I don't know, like taking advantage of like people's suffering to like try to make a point. I don't know, it just didn't feel like super great in that respect. And Christian Bale's I think it was Christian Bale. Pretty sure. His performance being Dick Cheney, it got more and more irritating for me because he has a lot of facial tics and like vocal tics, I guess. And the longer the movie went, the more irritating they become and like the more frequent they became. And I'm sure that's just because that's how Dick Cheney actually talks, but I don't watch enough of Dick Cheney to know that. And I could tell towards the end that he was like acting a little bit too much. But in general, everyone did a great job. I thought the format of the movie was extremely interesting. There's a lot of breaking of the fourth wall and like inserting different types of footage, and the narrator's like aspect and like role and everything I thought was really interesting too. Like in general, I thought it was really good. It just kind of bothered me on those certain aspects. And the last movie that I watched was Ruben Blades Is Not My Name. So good, so good, so good. This Panamanian musician who was just like I guess like a great cultural figure in the Hispanic. I feel like it was salsa music. I'm not really sure. I don't remember. But I just thought it was so beautiful. There's a scene that like made me cry almost. I have a lot of my mom is Dominican, and so I have a lot of like weird, I get emotional about kind of, I guess we all do, right? There's like different things that trigger us in different respects. And there are certain bits of it that really like made me like, oh gosh. Specifically when he's going back to see his house, because now he's like a famous guy living in New York, whatever. When he goes back to his house, and so like watching him get emotional at that point, and like watching how much, because people are stopping on the streets and like watching these people get emotional meeting him, and like watching them like just be so happy and excited to meet him, like really felt good and like made me cry. Like it's kind of making me emotional right now. I am also going to mention just one magazine article, and then I'm going to end this video, and that is from the New Yorker from January 14th, and it's the illiberal state, and it just has to do with the crappy prime minister of Hungary, who is trying to bring back a Christian democracy. I think that's what he was calling it. Basically anti-abortion and anti-immigrant, and so yeah, because that's the trend of the whole world at the moment. So if you want to get real angry, you can go read that article. I'll link it below, okay? I'm going to go now because this is almost 30 minutes long. Sorry if you've read any of these things and you're still watching. Let me know what you thought of them, okay?